Hey everybody, Elliot here from the Tableau Data Dev Ambassador team. And at the time I'm recording this, Bitcoin's been on another tear. And whether Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is a way of life for you, or if you don't really care one way or another, I think that this video is going to offer us a chance to kind of have something interesting for everybody. This gives us a chance to play with time series data, gives us a chance to talk about, or really opens the door for us to talk about a lot of interesting analytics techniques, and also get exposure to tools that are useful in pretty much any discipline. So that's the angle I'm coming at this from. I find cryptocurrency to be a super interesting topic, but even if you're not into crypto at all, or if you're crazy into crypto and you're building your own trade bots and stuff like that, or making your own trades, this should have a little bit of something for everybody. So what we're going to do is we are going to take a look at how we can pull historical price data for cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin in particular in this tutorial, and we're going to look at how we can pull those programmatically by hitting the REST API for one of the crypto exchanges that exist, in this case Gemini. So if we take a look over here at Gemini, we can see that there's pricing data available here. But it'd be really painful for you to come in and try to figure out, all right, this is the price right now. What was this price yesterday? What was the price the day before? And you could probably Google that. You could stitch a nice spreadsheet together, or maybe go hunt somewhere where you can pull historical prices. But another thing that you can do is you could just use the exchange's public APIs to do this for you. Especially if you're a data savvy person and maybe you don't consider yourself a programmer, but you use Tableau a lot, or you work with data inside of spreadsheets, but the phrase REST API is intimidating. Don't let that really get in your way. We'll show you here you don't need to be crazy deep into programming in order to make this stuff come to life for you. So this is the REST API reference that we're going to be playing around with. And for starters, let's just see what it looks like. What does it mean for us to send a request to this API? So here we can see that the most basic, not necessarily the most basic, but the first listed endpoint that we can hit in these public APIs, which just means we don't need an account, we don't need credentials. Anyone can freely send a GET request to this URL and they'll get data back. Let's take a look at what this looks like inside of Python. So I'm inside of a Jupyter notebook, and this is what I find to be a really great environment to just kind of test around and play with things like hitting APIs for data, because you don't have to run an entire script and then if you fail, go back and redo it. You can kind of run code line by line, cell by cell. It's interactive. So anyways, we have datetime that we're importing. That's a library, a built-in Python library that later on in this code we'll use to convert a timestamp into a date that's a little more Tableau friendly. And we're also going to import the requests and the pandas libraries. Requests is one of the best libraries out there just in terms of hitting REST APIs using Python. And then pandas is going to be really useful in this tutorial because we want a place to store the data that the server returns to us. It's going to be pandas is going to be our middleman, where we can take the data that's returned to us, push it into a pandas data frame, and then that pandas API, the pandas library, really gives us an easy way to push that data out into a CSV file. All right, so let's get to sending requests. This text that I have here, I just copied from the API outside here. They said, go ahead and hit this with a GET request if you want to know information about the symbols that are available on the exchange. So let's go ahead and do that. I say response equals that request, And so if you just look at the response itself, this isn't what we want. What we want is the JSON inside that response. And we can see that this is really kind of just giving us a list of all the different currency pairs that are traded against each other on the exchange. So for example, Bitcoin USD. So that's Bitcoin and the US dollar. And this is what we're going to run with for the rest of the tutorial. Of course, you could query any of these. And in future tutorials, we'll take a look at that. Maybe we want to query all of these, and then in a Tableau dashboard, be able to filter, which symbol am I actually analyzing. So for this, let's start, baby steps. Let's just care about Bitcoin for now. So the next step, we saw that basic URL endpoint. If we really wanted to get fancy, we could do a little bit of building our own API or our own library to interact with the Gemini Exchange. But let's slow ourselves down a little bit here, and we'll just keep everything pretty simple. So we're going to make a base URL, and we're going to add some information onto it. Why am I doing this? Well, if we look out here at the candles endpoint, this is another public endpoint, so you don't need an account to hit this. But what this allows us to do is we can get the candles, or you could think about that as kind of the prices, like the price candles. It's hard for me to really take the time to explain why this is called candle, but all you need to know is that if we hit these candles endpoints, then we can pass in what symbol we care about, in our case Bitcoin and US dollar, and then what time frame do we care about that. And that's going to give us, in our case, we're going to say, let's look at a time frame of 1 day. So that's going to give us daily Bitcoin prices for free. So that's pretty cool. So let's see what this looks like. But we can see from up here that we are going to want all this information inside the URL that we send to the as the GET request to the Gemini Exchange. So let's make that happen. I'm just separating these different pieces of information into different variables that we will then stitch together. So base URL, API version, the symbol we care about, and the time frame. If you do it this way, then if you wanted to, you could easily change the time frame and everything. You could rerun everything and it would work for you. So let's take a look at what the text is that we're going to be sending. Now let's go ahead and send that request. And again, we look at the JSON response that we get, and we can see that the REST API is not going to be giving us back column headers. So something that we're going to want to do is just kind of name these columns as we put this data into a pandas data frame. And what we have here is a timestamp, we have some prices, and then we have the volume. Now to figure out exactly what all that data is, all we need to do is come back out here to the REST API reference and scroll down, and we can see this section that describes what we get in the response from the server. And it's going to tell us that we get the time, and that's the time in milliseconds, and we get opening price, high price, low price, the closing price, and the overall volume. All right, so we can see if we scroll down that I've actually built us a little helper function here. And if you're not so familiar with Python, or if you are familiar with it, but more in a really lightweight scripting capacity, you're not writing functions and classes, don't think too much about this. What this function's doing is it's taking that JSON data that we see up above, that's basically giving us all those timestamps and the prices, and it's just saying let's shove that into a pandas data frame. That pandas data frame is going to have these column names, and we put this in the order that the data appeared in the JSON data above. And then finally I'm just running this simple lambda function against every row of data that's saying for all those timestamps, let's use the datetime library to convert those into dates that are going to be a little bit more Tableau friendly. So once we run that, we can see that that data is now existing inside of Panda's data frame, and that means that we can take that data and spit it out into a CSV file. And I'm going to drop the index, which just means this 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't care about the index column here. So let's go ahead and shoot that out into a CSV. And now at this point we can hop into Tableau and we can connect to that data. So everything else you see here, this is just something really quickly I threw together, and I made a little visual of the range in prices. Like I plotted the low price, the high price, and then the price range. And I did this just to give us a little something to stare at. No real deep thoughts here, except that maybe price range is a good indicator of relative volatility, which if you're a trader might be interesting, because it means that if you buy low and sell high, if you have bigger swings between your prices, that's more potential for profit. So if we're really playing this this role-playing game of we're trying to trade some Bitcoin here, maybe we also want to know which day of the week tends to have the most apparently the most volatility, which you could approximate based off that range in prices. And this just could be useful for us to start exploring, which days would be good as a trader to take a vacation or something, or which days do you definitely not want to miss when you're wanting to maximize your profits. So in any case, I threw this together so we could make a really basic dashboard. And I wanted to show you this because without almost putting any time into this, if we just open up a dashboard, we take one of these visuals, we take two of these visuals, and then we make this top visual act as a filter. Well, now you're in this nice situation where you have an interactive dashboard. Whatever I select up in the top is going to filter what I'm seeing down in the bottom. So we can see that this graph down here is changing as I select data points in the one up top. And so not to say that these two visuals are the greatest thing you're ever going to see, but really quickly we can go from pulling that Bitcoin data and that cryptocurrency data from the exchange, throwing it into a file that Tableau can interact with, and then building interactive data visualizations in Tableau. So in future tutorials, we'll go deeper down this rabbit hole. We'll explore all aspects of this, the Python side, prepping the data in Python, and then building interesting analyses in Tableau. Because I think just all around, this gives us a really good way to kind of flex some of these Tableau data dev muscles and really play with some data that's fun. So hope to see you in future tutorials, and I hope that this one was interesting to you or maybe even helpful. So thanks for tuning in.